Everyone has watched a loved one go through the process of dying at some point in their life. Whether they passed away across the state or directly in front of you, there comes a time when you question their last moments. You begin to question the when, the where, the why, and the hows of their death. Having witnessed several different forms of death rattle my own family, I personally believe that physician-assisted suicide should be in reach of any patient, no matter the circumstance, as long as they feel they need it. As stated in the University of Ottawa Journal of Medicine, physician-assisted suicide will become an important discussion to have with family members over the next few years. Physician-assisted suicide is the act of a physician, doctor, or third party assisting in ending a patient's life in response to severe pain and suffering. Euthanasia is most commonly used in veterinary medicine to put down an animal. However, in modern medicine, taking a terminally ill, suffering patient's life, including those who have lost their mental capacity to make their own decisions, is known as physician-assisted suicide. It is similarly different from euthanasia, which is a lethal injection with the intention to cause death to another person or animal. Assisted suicide, however, is simply leaving it up to the patient to make their own decision. A physician facilitates the patient's death by providing the necessary means or information to enable the patient to perform a life-ending act. An example would be providing sleeping pills and information about the lethal dose while knowing that the patient has a chance of committing suicide. It is legal in a few states such as Montana, Washington, Oregon, and Vermont. The countries in which it is legal are Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. This practice is illegal in a majority of states, but as I've stated, there are a lot of positive sides to the touchy subject. Jack Kevorkian, a U.S.-based pathologist and euthanasia activist who assisted in patient suicides, sparked increased talk on hospice care and the right to die legislative action. Years after conflict with the court system over the legality of his actions, he spent 8 years of his life in prison after a 1999 conviction. It involved terminally ill Tom Yoke and his family begging Kevorkian to assist in his death. One quote that struck me from a lot of his others is, "Anytime you interfere with a natural process, you're playing God. God determined what happened naturally. That means when a person's ill, he shouldn't go to the doctor because he's asking for interference with God's will." But of course, patients can't think that way. As so, the benefits of physician-assisted suicide are that the patient's pain and suffering will end, which is highly important to a lot of people above everything else. In all, healthcare costs would become reduced as they are not expressing every means necessary to save a life already unavoidably lost. Nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers can help patients that have a chance at life rather than spending time on a terminally ill patient. Now, I'm not saying that not everybody matters, but there are situations in which we can help prolong and we can also help them without them having to suffer. Pain on the family could be reduced also depending on the situation. Say if a woman dying with cancer prolongs her life for fear of dying, it can put unneeded stress on loved ones thinking that the time is near when actually she's finding other means to hold on to life for a little bit longer, which there's nothing wrong with that. On another note, vital organs can be saved and used for other patients. His rights and wrongs, it's all controversial, but if a person can be helped by what they perceive help by, then by all means, I believe that their request should be honored and not shamed. A lot of us are familiar with Brittany Maynard. She was a 29-year-old who moved to Oregon to have her access their Death with Dignity Act. Shortly after her wedding, she kept experiencing really bad headaches, and it turned out that she had a terminal form of cancer in the brain. She was told that she had 10 years to live, and she lived those years to the fullest. Brittany defended herself by saying that it wasn't a suicide. She said, "There is not a cell in my body that is suicidal or wants to die," as she told People.com. "I want to live. I wish there was a cure for my disease, but there is not. Being able to choose to go with my dignity is less terrifying." She made her own conscious decision, and it was honored and had a set date, which brought better form of closure to her family. Another case that is more off the radar than Brittany's was in Portland, Texas, regarding the family of Natalie Newton. Natalie was a 20-month-old who had slipped and fallen into her family pool, suffering severe brain damage. Undergoing organ failure, seizures, and other complications, the hospital's ethics committee decided that end of life was the most humane course to go. Her family made the decision to take her off with the feeding tubes, as it was the only true option left, and in turn they watched their baby starve to death for over 9 days. The incident had made a push towards making euthanasia legal in Texas. It is a matter of law and controversy, of course. Many people, and myself, that feel that since the death penalty is legal in this country, so should the decision of physician-assisted suicide be for suffering patients that ask for it. But of course, with everything, there are others that believe it is a mad, wrongful thought. It is unethical. It can be against religions. And it's always going to have the pros and cons, but I believe that it has more pros, as I have stated above. Fundamentally, physician-assisted suicide becomes incompatible with the primary role of a doctor as a healer, so it could give them too much power, but in the meantime, I think they have a lot of power being doctors and being able to save lives. So as I do not believe it is right to deny anyone of what they believe in, and if someone believes that their life has lost its meaning, then they should go and do whatever they deem is fit. While I believe a doctor should prevent disease by any means necessary, I also believe that the patients suffer just as bad after the delirium state. When considering yourself whether physician-assisted suicide should be legalized, ask yourself this question. Is allowing suffering to take place cruel, or is it necessary?